Christ's Letters, Day 7. I was brought to a realization of the infinite power of the intelligent creativity, ever active within creation, maintaining order, cooperation, harmony, daily productivity, unequaled by man anywhere at any time. Number 7. Survival was a natural characteristic of the creative power. In every case, the most wonderful provision had been made for all living things to grow, be healed of illnesses and injury, nourished in order to keep the body healthy, and to produce its own kind in order to ensure survival on this earth. This was the only reality mankind could be absolutely sure of, and its activity was consistent year in and year out. The sun, moon, stars all remained in their places for millennia, and it was recognized that they all possessed their own paths of movement. This phenomena was all part of the grand scheme for survival in creation. If this was so, how could there not be survival of the eternal flame of loving, intelligent, creative power hidden within the created entities of every kind in the universe? Therefore, this world was but a shadow and image of the hidden worlds of loving, intelligent, creative power beyond this dimension. The reality of the entirety of creation lay beyond this visible world. Number 8. The inherent characteristic of loving, intelligent, creative power was rhythm. I saw that there was rhythm in operation in the world. Everything was subject to seasons, which gave a blossoming and burgeoning of life. A growing season coming up to the ripening and harvest, and the production of seeds which ensured the survival of plant life. Then there was the gradual dying away and rest period of winter. But nothing created and living was allowed to become extinct. The sun and moon expressed these characteristics within the universe. This rhythm could even be seen in the females of living things. Therefore, everything in creation had its due time for appearance and harvest. It followed that man himself was subject to tides of growth and success and tides of dormancy. Number 9. The inherent characteristic of the loving, intelligent, creative power was law and order. The undeviating order and reliability apparent in creation, even in governing the tiny entities within the body, were astonishing and far transcended any human endeavor. Therefore, the entire universe was operating under a system of perfect law and order. I realized on ever higher and higher levels of spiritual exaltation that the creative power exhibited intelligent purposefulness and loving concern for all living things. I realized that life was not something nebulous or amorphous, but an intelligent, loving creative power which I could actually feel within myself as a tremendously heightened state of being, perception, radiance, ecstasy, joy, love. I knew myself to be one with it, filled with it, and I was one with everything around me and one with the sky and stars. And most wonderful and glorious of all, the very nature and function of this Father, creative power, was to work in order to create joy, beauty, and comfort to ensure mankind's well-being, to work within mankind to provide interior joy, health, and comfort, and to work through mankind, inspiring him with new realization and understanding. Wonderful vistas of glorious creativity came to mind. Once we became truly at one, purified channels and instruments of the intelligent, creative power, we could gradually ascend in consciousness until we truly expressed through our minds and hearts the very nature of the universal creative power. Then, life on earth would indeed become a state of heaven at all times, and we would enter into a state of eternal life. This must surely be the true goal behind creation, I thought, and it came to me with a surge of elation and loving joy that this was the purpose for which man had been evolved and developed. But even at this present time, although mankind was so very imperfect in his behavior, absolutely nothing was impossible to him in the future, since, despite his wrongdoing, he was one with the creative power, and the creative power was within him, giving him life, limb, and everything else he needed. All of this realization lifted me to the heights of rapture, elation, and sublime ecstasy, so that I was scarcely able to bear it. I felt my body must dissolve with the expansion of power within me. I was irradiated with light and could see it all around me, illuminating the desert scene. My heart sang in praises. How wonderful and beautiful was the loving creative power which worked in, through, and for us, unceasingly. What a miracle was creation! I cried out loud, "You are the source of all being, both creator and also manifested within and through the created. There is nothing in the entire universe which is apart or separate from the limitless, eternal infinity of divine life, creative power consciousness that you are. How then is it possible that mankind is so sinful? And why do people suffer disease, misery, and poverty? Tell me, O loving Father, creative power, because I have been heavily burdened with the pain of their miserable lives." Then I was shown the reality of the earthly condition of all living things. I felt immense excitement because, at last, I would be able to understand how it was that such a loving divine creative power could allow its creation to endure such misery. I was shown that every living thing in creation should be radiantly healthy, cared for, nourished, protected, healed, maintained in peace and plenty, prospered within an orderly society of beings, extending only love to each other. However, at the moment of creation, two basic impulses came into being, ensuring individuality, and it was this which controlled mankind's consciousness. These impulses were explained to me in detail, but this knowledge is reserved for a future letter when you will be better able to understand it. I was shown the following vivid vision. First of all, I saw a newborn babe as light, a life form of creative power. As the baby grew into childhood, then manhood, I saw the pure light of the creative power gradually dimmed and then obscured altogether in him by a dense wrapping of chains and thongs. I questioned the meaning of the vision, and there came to my mind a clear understanding which may be expressed in the following words. From birth to death, people believe and insist that their five senses of sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste correctly predicate the reality of themselves and the universe around them. Therefore, because they draw their mind power direct from divine creative power, it is done to them according to their beliefs. Each thong represents a person's habitual thoughts, responses to people and events, prejudices, hates, animosities, anxieties, sorrows, all of which bind him down and shut out the light from his inner vision, drawn from the creative power. Thus, he enters into darkness but does not know it. He believes he is growing up and becoming mature in the ways of the world, which will enable him to forge ahead and make good, become successful, the aim of most people on earth. In fact, the more mature he becomes and versed in worldly ways, the more densely do his chains and thongs imprison him within the grip of the twin impulses of binding rejection. Furthermore, each chain is forged out of selfish and deceitful desires, greed, aggression, violence, and rape. These chains hang heavy around him and burden the psyche, which is the creative consciousness power deep within him. Chain and thong will bind him tighter, tighter with every passing year until he realizes what he is doing to himself and sincerely repents each thong and chain and makes due restitution to others whom he has harmed. With this vision, I learned a most valuable aspect of existence. Man himself is born with all the potential to make a beautiful life for himself, but he himself, by indulging in his selfish desires and hatreds, creates a prison of misery for himself from which there was no escape until such times as he realizes the truth of existence. All the problems of heart's existence lay within the thought processes of man himself. Only people's consciousness forms. Their thoughts, words, feelings, actions created a dense barrier between their consciousness and the universal creative consciousness interpenetrating the universe in every leaf, tree, insect, bird, animal, and human being. Number 13. Laws of existence. I was also shown the laws of existence controlling the human ability to create new circumstances and environment, relationships, achievement or failure, prosperity or poverty. Whatever man profoundly believes himself to be, good or bad, that he will become. Whatever man fears others will do to him, so will they do. Whatever man hopes that others will do to him, he must first do to them, since he is then creating a consciousness pattern which will return to bless him to the extent he has blessed others. Whatever disease man dreads, so will whatever disease man dreads, so will he become prey to it, for he will have created a consciousness pattern of the very thing he least wants to experience. Whatever is sent forth from man's mind and heart returns to him in due course in some form or another. But remember that like always breeds like. Strongly held emotional thoughts are consciousness seeds planted within a man's own orbit of consciousness. These will grow, bearing a like harvest for his reaping. These are the fruits of free will. There is no way that man may escape what he thinks, says, or does, for he is born of the divine creative consciousness power, and is likewise creative in his imagining. Those who long for good for themselves must first give it to others. Let their very existence be a blessing to others. When such people are in harmony with all others, they are then perfectly attuned to the universal creative consciousness power, and they are brought into the flow of the Father Nature, which is growth, protection, nourishment, physical, mental, spiritual, healing, fulfillment of need within a system of law and order. How can I describe for you my inner glow, my transcendent brightness and brilliance of joy and powerful feelings of love, which possessed and inflated my entire being with their intensity until I cried out with the pressure within my mind and heart? It was so powerful it seemed it would entirely dissolve my bodily form. As I received all this sublime understanding of the reality, our source of being, and the true nature